Hey, it's February of 2020, but I'm really late to things, so let's look back at the top 8 comic book movies of 2019. I'll be honest, 2019 wasn't a great year for comic book movies. There are a few pretty exceptional ones, but overall, I'm not too thrilled about a lot of them. Or about many of them, and I will disclose which of those that I was thrilled with throughout the course of this video. But yeah, so let's get started. Number 8, The Kitchen. Yeah, this is a comic book movie. um, it's not good. So basically, because I'm assuming you haven't even watched it. I don't know how good this how well this did at the box office. I don't probably didn't do well. Um, but yeah, it's about these two guys that are in the mob, or no, sorry, three guys that are in the mob, and they get arrested, and then their wives end up kind of like taking up their mantle or whatever, or yeah, they end up like trying to like fulfill their roles in the mob, and it just doesn't work like on any level, really. It's this movie that it's like it is trying so hard to be like a really serious mobster movie, and it doesn't really fail on that, and it fails on that end. I guess if you want to go to a comic book movie, it should be kind of fun, right? But this movie isn't fun at all. So it's just this nothing movie. It's nothing. This movie is nothing at all. Yeah, The Kitchen. It's but yeah, my least favorite comic book movie that came out. Don't watch it. It's really not worth watching. So yeah, number 7. Captain Marvel. I did not like this film. It's not because she's a woman or anything like that. I just didn't like it. And I think the main reason why is just because I just think the Captain Marvel is just so she's just not like a likable protagonist. And that's the thing with these Marvel movies. It's like even if like the plot isn't all that interesting, if there's some like formulaic elements or something, as long as like you give me like a really likable hero that I can get behind, then I'll generally give all that stuff a pass. But Captain Marvel, she's just so unlikable, and yeah, I guess it's just kind of because like she's like really arrogant and cocky, right? And we've seen characters like that before, like Tony Stark, but I feel like Tony Stark, first of all, Robert Downey Jr. is just like one of the most charismatic people to walk on this earth. But also, there are like always people around Tony Stark to like call him out on his bullshit. Like Pepper will always be there to be like, hey, you're being an idiot, stop that. Like Rhodey will be there to call him out. And like Captain Marvel doesn't really have that. Like none of the other characters like really like I don't know, like they don't ever really like call her out on her nonsense. So I don't know. I just find the main character to be really uninteresting. I don't like the way I don't care about. I don't end up caring about her backstory because it's like the thing with she loses her memory, and then as she learns who she was and all that, it's like they barely touched on it at all. Like it's just like very brief flashbacks, so I don't really care about that aspect of it. And and then like I guess like at the beginning of the movie, she's this cocky, arrogant asshole, and at the end of this movie, she's this cocky, arrogant asshole. Like there's no growth there either. So I just don't like the movie. And even as like a flashy comic book movie, I thought all the action was really bland. Just none of it really worked. So yeah, I don't like Captain Marvel. Number 6, Spider-Man Far From Home. I don't like this movie either. I honestly, I'm probably gonna end up making an entire separate video, really going in depth into why I don't like this movie. But to keep it brief here, I feel like this movie just completely betrays. I don't know, betrays a strong word. It's just not in line with the character that they've set up thus far in the MCU. Like this isn't me with like my preconceived notions of what Spider-Man should be, and imposing that onto this movie. Like I feel like this character just doesn't really align with what they've set him up to be in the MCU. So that's my main gripe with the movie. Also, it's just kind of the same. I feel like it's the same plot of Far From Home, where it's like, oh no, a guy from from Tony Stark's past is now the Spider-Man villain, and it's just like, really, like you're doing that again, and not nearly as interesting. The action is really bland. I don't like any of the action really. Yeah, I don't like this movie either. It's not terrible. By the way, Captain Marvel wasn't even terrible either. It's just like it's just bland, you know. It's kind of how I feel about these two movies. Number 5, Hellboy. I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by this movie. I don't know. After like I saw everybody's reactions, I was like kind of expecting it to be terrible, but it's not. It's not bad. I actually thought it was kind of fun. Like it's not great either, but but it was pretty decent. I don't know. I did not mind this movie in the least. I remember like watching the trailers for it and being like, this feels weird. This is like a weird tone that they're going for, but I thought it kind of worked. I don't know. Like, it's not a movie that I think is like incredible that you need to see, but I did not hate it. You know, I love David Harbour. I think David Harbour should be in everything, in just every franchise. Get him in Star Wars because he's been in DC and Marvel. Get him in Star Wars as well. David Harbour is just perfect. He's pretty good as Hellboy. I don't know if I like him as much as Ron Perlman, but yeah, he's good in the role. I would say like the supporting cast isn't really all that fun or interesting at all. But David Harbour carries the film, and yeah, it's not bad. Number 4, X-Men: Dark Phoenix is another movie that I was pleasantly surprised by. Another movie where I was like I was expecting it to be really bad, and I like Hellboy. I initially skipped it because I just heard terrible things about it, and I was like, I don't want to watch another Fox X-Men movie. But in preparation for this video, I had to watch it, so I watched it, and I didn't mind it. It's definitely better than like X-Men Apocalypse, which I absolutely despise. Like it's not bad. Like again, much like Hellboy, it's not great, but it's not bad. I appreciated what they were going for, because like this movie feels like really scaled back from Apocalypse. I mean, I guess like it still is like a world-ending threat, but I don't even remember. Did Apocalypse didn't even want to destroy the world? Did he? I honestly don't remember. But I just remember like the end of that movie was just a giant like tornado. I think there was a tornado involved. I'm pretty sure, but no. But this movie feels like really scaled back. I actually liked a lot of the stuff that they were doing with the characters, like with Professor X. You know, really like exploring him like not being a very good person. I will say, I think the thing that like that brings it down for me is the fact that the script is not great. Like, or I should say, like the dialogue is like there's some really bad dialogue in the movie. Also, it's like this thing of like there. I just like I don't really care about the new like batch of X-Men. It's like they're not like they haven't given us enough time to sit with this new cast of characters for like the Phoenix movie, like the Dark Phoenix movie, to like really be impactful for me to like really care about Jean Grey doing bad things. So like that's also not great. But I appreciate what they were going for. Oh, also, Jennifer Lawrence. Listen. It, it's been clear for some time now that Jennifer Lawrence does not want to be in these X-Men movies anymore. She's contractually obligated to be in these X-Men movies. Never has that been more apparent than in this movie. Oh my gosh! Like, you can tell that she does not care. And spoilers, I guess, she dies in this movie, and you can tell, man, Jennifer Lawrence is so happy to not have to be in these movies anymore. But no, I thought that was funny. Like, man, she's phoning it in. But but no, what was I saying? But yeah, I just like this new batch of X Men kids. They haven't given us enough time to really care about them. So it's like they're not bad or anything. It's just one of those things where it's like I'm meant to be like really I meant to feel really badly about Jane being bad or whatever. But yeah, it's one of but yeah. I mean, obviously, what's his face? Michael Fassbender, and what's his face as well? Oh my, the guy who plays Professor X. Oh, you know who it is. Those two, they're always great. Like they are so good in this role. Um, like still to this day, I really wish we could have gotten a solo Michael Fassbender Magneto movie, because like seeing him just like fight with metal is so cool. Like the bit in the train. Like by the way, yeah, like that's the thing. After like all these comic book movies with just giant climactic sequences, and like X-Men Apocalypse was I think it was my breaking point where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't take it anymore. The fact that this movie ends on it just ends on a train, I really appreciated that, and I really liked. I thought that that whole scene was really cool as well. But yeah, to see Magneto fight with metal, it's so cool. I still wish we would have could have gotten like a solo Magneto movie with Michael Fassbender. But that's obviously not going to happen anymore because Disney bought Fox and they're going to be bringing that into the MCU. And yeah, it's not a terrible movie. It's really not. I don't like. People really hated this movie, and I'm like, I thought it was fine. I way better than Apocalypse. So yeah, X Men Dark Phoenix. If you're like me and you skipped it because you're like it's whatever. I don't want to watch another Fox X Men movie. Honestly, I'd recommend checking it out. It's not great, but it's okay. Number 3, Shazam. I really like Shazam. This is the first movie on this list that I think is like genuinely great. Yeah, Shazam is just a really fun, great film. We talk about these superhero movies of giving you a character that you can really cling on to and really care about, and this movie does that really well. I really love like the character of Billy Batson. I was with him. I really feel for his whole struggle of being a foster kid and like knowing that his mom is out there and wanting to find his mom. I really like that. I loved his relationship with his foster brother, and the foster parents who are just like I love how they're just like really nice people. Like I know like a lot of like foster movies about a foster kid, like their foster parents a lot of the times they tend to just be like really terrible people. They're just like a really nice couple, and I really like that. Probably the weakest part of the movie is the villain. Like he's just not. This is fine, I guess, but there's nothing really. Nothing too great about that. And yeah, like I really love how like he's a child. So like when he is Shazam, he is a child, and I love seeing him and his little friend. um, like figuring out what their powers are and all that. It's just like a really fun movie with a ton of heart, which is really really nice to see from the from the comic book movie genre. Um, I would say like the weakest parts for me are like probably the action. Like I don't know. It's like when it kind of just turns into like Man of Steel. I'm like, ugh, I don't. This isn't. This is. I kind of just like turn my brain off in those bits. I don't know, because it's like when you get characters that are like Superman, and they're just punching each other through buildings and stuff, and it's like, and you don't feel like any of them are getting hurt. I don't know. That type of action just doesn't really interest me, me personally. And yeah, but yeah, it's a fun movie with a lot of heart. I really like it. Number two, I really like Joker. It's really really good film. It's obviously, I know it's like it's the movie that like people who like don't like really like comic book movies can now go like, oh my gosh, this is an actual film. This isn't like one of those blockbuster cash grabs. This is true cinema. I mean, unless you're Martin Scorsese, but no, I like it. And it's good that that comic book movies are that a studio took a chance and made a movie like this. Although I would say Logan was that as well, but Logan still had it still had like a big budget and there was still a ton of action in it. This is the first one that I've seen where there's really like no action in it, and yeah, it's a solid movie. It's a really really solid movie. I like how the movie is basically a commentary on mental illness and like the health I guess like the health insurance system of in the United States, and the fact that we just leave people behind. And like when like people with mental health and even just regular illnesses, like they can't afford a lot of their treatments, yeah, they're just left behind and they're left to fend for themselves. It's a really good commentary on that stuff, and that's obviously a problem that still exists today. And yeah, it's good. And oh yeah, obviously there's just a incredible performance by Joaquin Phoenix. He's probably gonna win the Oscar for Best Actor, which I mean, yeah, he probably deserves it. I would say so. And yeah, Joker. It's a good movie. Yeah, it also it's like it very much wears its inspiration on its sleeves, and to a certain, I understand why people how that would like really like irk some people, because it's not just it really isn't a case of it's like it's paying homage to Taxi Driver and like King of Comedy. I haven't seen King of Comedy, but I have seen Taxi Driver. And there's a ton of bits where it's like, no, you're just doing you're just doing Taxi Driver. And from what I know of the King of Comedy and from how I've heard people talk about it, it's like there are other bits in this movie where it's like, no, you're just doing King of Comedy. And yeah, I get why that would bother people, but it worked for me. I still like if I look at it on its own, it's still a pretty solid movie that I can appreciate. And yeah, I was also like, I remember going into this, I was worried. I'm like, I don't want to see a Joker origin movie. Like, the best thing about the Joker is that you don't know where he came from, and I thought they handled that really well in this, to where it's like, yeah, you kind of know his origin, but like his parent, like you don't know who his parents are, and they're still, and kind of a thing of like where after he finds out that his mom was lying to him, he kind of and after he kills her, I feel like that kind of is the birth of the Joker, that he doesn't have an origin. He doesn't his whole life has been a lie. So like I feel like that really set up the whole mythology of like the Joker doesn't even really know who he is. I feel like that kind of set that up really well. So yeah, I love this movie on pretty much every front. I think it's a solid movie, brilliant performance, and it even I thought it was faithful to the character of the Joker in a way that I didn't really expect them to do. Number one, the best one of the bunch. You know what it is, because it's the last. It's the last one that I haven't talked about. Avengers Endgame. I mean, listen, man. Listen. What do you even want me to say? What do you want me to say? It's Avengers Endgame. They stuck the landing. They did it. It. They did it. They did this whole Infinity Saga with the MCU. They got to the conclusion and they stuck the landing in like I mean listen, I was worried about this movie. I'll be honest. Cuz it's like even though I loved Infinity War and I loved the trailers, like they didn't do anything to make me worried, but just the fact that oh my gosh, this is it. This is the finale, the conclusion. I mean, like obviously the MCU, it's gonna keep on going. But Endgame is the end of the Infinity Saga. It's the end of the story that they've been telling, you know, with Tony and Cap. Like it's the end of that saga, you know. So even though like the MCU might keep on going, and maybe it'll crash and burn. Who knows? But I will always appreciate, you know, from Iron Man to Endgame as just this gigantic, incredible accomplishment. And yeah, and Endgame as the finale, I absolutely adored it. That's why it's number one on this list. You know, I thought the way that they handled you know, Tony sacrificing himself for sacrificing himself to save to save Earth from that threat that he had initially failed to defeat, and you know the threat that he's been paranoid about since that first Avengers movie. I loved it. I loved how they handled that. I love Cap. You know, he's obviously he's felt so out of out of touch with this new world. Like he's never really acclimated to it, and he's even fallen out of love with with America as a country, as a as a kind of as like this symbol of goodness. Like as he's as he's lived in this modern world, he just realized how shitty everything is, and I love that he decided to give it up and just go back and live with Peggy. It's so good. This movie is so good, and I mean, and I know I mentioned before how I mentioned before how like I like just a mindless action and like X-Men Apocalypse, how I hated that. And like I'm not saying that I don't like massive action set pieces, because Avengers Endgame has a ton of that, but it's all done with a purpose, you know. It's not just mindless. And so yeah, I mean honestly, I could go on talking about Avengers Endgame for like an hour, but I want to end this video. I don't want this video to go on too long. Yeah, I cannot emphasize enough how just satisfied I was with Avengers Endgame. Is it perfect? No, there's problems with it, but man, they stuck the landing. Like I said before, they did it. They concluded the Infinity Saga in a really good way. And that's why Avengers Endgame is my number one comic book movie of 2019. Yeah, this wasn't a great year for comic book movies. I really only ended up loving like two of them. Like I love Joker and Avengers Endgame. I guess I could I use the L word for Shazam? You know, if I'm just if I'm like wavering on it, then I'm gonna say no. I don't love Shazam. I like Shazam more than like Dark Phoenix and Hellboy, but I don't love it as much as like Joker or Avengers Endgame. So yeah, like I only really love two of them. I really like Shazam, and I didn't mind like Dark Phoenix and Hellboy. You know, I guess probably my enjoyment of them mostly comes from the fact that I was expecting them to be awful. Um, and yeah, the kitchen, the kitchen. Don't watch the kitchen. I'm guessing you've never heard of heard of this movie. Don't go and see it. Just don't be fooled. Just be thinking it's a comic book. Don't be me. Don't be me and go. It's a comic book movie, so I have to see it, especially for this video. Don't do it. You can save yourself. Save yourself from the kitchen. Save yourself from Megan McCarthy. What's her name? Her first name isn't Megan, is it? I don't remember names. Bye.